Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're your shortcut to getting really informed on the big stories. So imagine this, a nation declaring war, okay, but not with tanks or missiles, with water. Today we're diving into, well, just an extraordinary story out of Burkina Faso. They're building this audacious, honestly, truly unexpected project, the longest irrigation canal in Africa. Our source material for this deep dive paints a really vivid picture of this whole transformation. And our mission today, it's pretty clear. We want to unpack why water is suddenly front and center in Burkina Faso's fight for real independence. And crucially, how they're pulling off this massive build without the usual foreign aid, without the usual oversight. And then what does it all mean? For the future, sure, but maybe, just maybe, for other nations trying to find their own path too. Okay, let's get into it. So for decades, Burkina Faso's biggest weakness wasn't really its military. It was the ground beneath their feet, the soil. This land has potential, but the rains just weren't reliable. Year after year, villages collapsed, poverty spread, all because they lacked consistent year-round water. And let's be honest, when a nation can't feed itself reliably, its sovereignty is, well, it's compromised, isn't it? It's like you're still on a leash. But then came Captain Ibrahim Traoré, and with him, a really radical shift in thinking. Here's where it gets interesting. Traoré seemed to grasp that the real weapon, the real power, wasn't firepower. It was hydrological control. Sounds technical. But the idea is simple, almost primal. Control water, you control life, you control destiny. If you grow your own food, you really control your own destiny. He saw that the true path to independence wasn't through negotiating tables, but through irrigation trenches.
And the timing here is really critical. You had these escalating climate shocks hitting the whole Sahel region. Countries like Burkina Faso were being pushed year after year, right to the brink of famine. But instead of just, scrambling for the next round of emergency aid, Traoré decided to break the cycle. He chose to build proactively, not just react.
Right, because waiting just digs the hole deeper.
Exactly. Waiting only increases that dependence on food aid, and let's face it, the political strings that often come attached. So this focus on water, it's not just about farming, it's actually a full-blown resistance strategy. It's about making sure Burkina Faso never again has to, kneel for grain shipments or plead for food loans. It's about dismantling a system where, frankly, hunger in one place could be profitable for powers elsewhere.
That's such a powerful framing. Water as the great equalizer. It doesn't care about your credit score, does it? Or your GDP, or how much debt you owe the IMF. If you can manage it, if you can control its flow, you really can turn deserts into granaries. You can turn forgotten villages into economic engines. So Traoré picks the Bama Plains for this huge project. And this choice was loaded with symbolism. This was an area everyone had written off. Cursed by drought, they said. Forgotten by investors, dismissed by the planners. And yet, this is where he decides to plant the flag for Burkina Faso's resurrection. This is the front line.
Yeah, and if we connect this to the bigger picture he seems to be painting, Bama was seen as this forgotten agricultural jewel. Previous governments had just let it go. So the thinking seems to be, if we can make Bama bloom, if we can build this huge water artery right through this challenging land,
then anything feels possible.
Exactly. Then food security doesn't seem impossible. Economic revival doesn't seem impossible. Maybe even that broader idea of Pan-African agricultural sovereignty starts to feel real. It wasn't just a nice idea. It was like a deliberate act of defiance being carved right into the earth.
And the canal itself, the physical thing, it's impressive. It cuts across the Huet province, which is fertile land. It's carving its way through, get this, 1,260 hectares for rice cultivation, plus another 70 hectares for vegetable plots. And they're already lining up another 200 plus hectares of farmland to connect to it. That's huge. But what's really getting attention, what feels revolutionary here, isn't just the scale, it's how it's being built. You don't see the usual foreign contractors running the show, no expensive consultants flown in from Europe or America, no white-gloved engineers for the photo ops. The message is loud and clear. The Bama Canal is being built by the people of Burkina Faso, for the people of Burkina Faso. Yeah. The machinery, the labor, the sheer urgency, it's all intensely local.
Which brings us to, this almost unbelievable deadline. President Traoré set an 8-month target for completion.
8 months. For the longest canal in Africa.
8 months. Think about typical aid-funded projects. They can get stuck in bureaucracy for, 10 years? Sometimes more?
Easily, yeah.
This is different. Reports describe it as a controlled storm of coordination. You've got cement mixers going before dawn, workers staying late under floodlights. There's apparently a significant level of militarized oversight keeping things on track. Every delay is treated almost like a national insult. It's less like a standard construction project and more like an emergency operation, an operation for independence.
And they're building it smart too, right? Not just digging a ditch. They're thinking about the future. We're hearing about solar-powered pumps. That's key. No reliance on a shaky grid. Pressure regulating valves for efficiency. And soon they're rolling out smart flow monitors. So really trying to make every drop count.
And even more advanced tech, things like AI-assisted irrigation scheduling, soil moisture sensors, crop health monitoring. Yeah, these are tools you usually associate with massive billion-dollar corporate farms in the West. And now they're being embedded directly into Burkina Faso's rural economy. Alongside that, you see the essential infrastructure popping up. Storage warehouses, new paved roads connecting farms to markets, local water distribution hubs. It's a whole system.
Okay, so impressive engineering, intense effort. But what does it actually mean on the ground? What's the impact? Let's talk food first. The projections are that this canal will help Burkina Faso produce an additional 50,000 tons of food every year.
50,000 tons. For a country that used to rely so heavily on imports just to survive, that figure is, well, it's staggering. It's transformative. And this gets to the heart of food sovereignty. It's not just about having enough food. It's about deciding what your people eat, when they eat it, how it's grown, and crucially, at what cost.
Right. No more being dictated to by global markets or overseas suppliers.
Exactly. No more panic when global grain prices spike. No more waiting for emergency shipments that might not even arrive on time. We're seeing what looks like a quiet but really profound policy shift happening within Traoré's government. Agriculture isn't just agriculture anymore. It's being treated as a core pillar of national security. You have ministries now analyzing harvest cycles like they used to analyze troop movements. Economists are modeling food exports as part of GDP growth.
So farming becomes an instrument of liberation.
Precisely.
That's a good way to put it.
And this power shift, it's not just happening at the top, right? It's filtering down. Farmers with reliable water, they can actually plan. They can invest in a second harvest, maybe rotate crops more effectively. They can work with local seed banks with more confidence.
Absolutely. And small cooperatives gain leverage. And what's really significant is the impact on women. Women's farming groups, often stuck with marginal land or limited dry season planting, now suddenly have access to fertile fields and reliable water.
That must be changing things dramatically in some communities. It's reshaping traditional gender roles in agriculture, giving women more economic power and influence. And then there's the ripple effect outwards. Local markets start responding immediately. When fresh produce is available year-round, food inflation starts to come down. Families spend less on basic food.
Which frees up money for other things. School fees, healthcare.
Small business investments, yeah. It boosts the entire local economy, not just the farms. But here's another angle, the diplomatic one. When you grow more and rely less, your position on the world stage changes. Food-rich nations have leverage. You can't be easily pressured or blackmailed with threats of withholding rain.
Interesting.
And potentially, as Burkina Faso becomes more food secure, maybe even a supplier to its neighbors, especially during droughts or shocks. That builds a kind of soft power influence that you can't just buy or borrow.
So it's like statecraft with onions and rice instead of just tanks and treaties.
You could say that, yeah. It's a very practical, very grounded form of building national strength.
So beyond the tons of rice and the policy shifts, there's something else happening here, something deeper, maybe harder to measure. You mentioned pride earlier. It's about dignity, isn't it?
I think that's absolutely central to President Traoré's message. His philosophy seems crystal clear. Burkinabe will build Burkina Faso. It's a rejection of the old model, where development meant foreign consultants telling people what to do or outside companies bringing in their own workforce.
Right. The people weren't just beneficiaries anymore.
Exactly. They're being positioned as the builders, the operators, the actual owners of the country's future. And that's a powerful shift in mindset.
And you see that directly at the Canal site, right? The jobs created, we're talking over 2,000 direct jobs already. Welders, civil engineers, masons, technicians, Burkinabe people.
Yeah, and it's not just a construction project providing temporary labor. It's framed as an incubator.
An incubator for what?
For a national workforce renaissance, perhaps. Compare that to so many big infrastructure projects in Africa.
Where locals get the low-skilled jobs, maybe?
Often, yeah. And the real technical skills, the engineering expertise, the profits, they tend to get extracted and taken elsewhere. This seems intentionally different. They're apparently making a real effort with the procurement chain, too. Sourcing materials regionally, manufacturing or repairing tools within the country, using local companies for logistics.
So the money circulates locally.
It becomes like a national circulatory system for work and income flowing through the project, and that connects back to pride. We heard this story about a 23-year-old welder working on the canal. Apparently, he used to have to beg for casual work in the capital, Ouagadougou. His family had lost pretty much everything during the drought years.
Right.
Now he's earning a steady wage. He's sending money back home, supporting his family. He's rebuilding trust, not just in the government, but maybe in the future itself. He sees himself, and people see him, as a nation builder, not just a laborer.
That's powerful.
And for a lot of people in these rural areas, this might be the first time they've seen government investment reach them directly, without a middleman skimming off the top, without getting lost in bureaucracy, without the whiff of corruption.
So delivery builds loyalty, not just promises.
It seems that way. Loyalty earned through tangible results.
And what about skills for the long term? Are they thinking beyond just building the canal? You mentioned training centers popping up nearby.
Yes, vocational centers offering these crash courses, but in really relevant skills. Canal maintenance, solar pump repair, hydraulics, even agri-logistics, how to manage the movement of produce.
So they're creating long-term career paths.
That seems to be the goal, turning young people who might have been idle or felt they had no future into skilled technicians, maybe even entrepreneurs supporting the new agricultural economy.
And maybe that addresses another big issue, people leaving the countryside for the cities.
Exactly. If young people see a real future, a future literally growing under their feet,
A future they're actually building themselves.
then maybe that drift towards overcrowded cities slows down. Maybe they stay because there's opportunity, not just because they feel trapped.
Wow. So wrapping up this deep dive, it's really clear this is about so much more than just digging a big ditch and moving water. It feels like a long-term play, a revolution in calories, control, and confidence. A genuine insurgency against hunger, like you said. Burkina Faso seems to be trying to fundamentally shift from importing survival to maybe exporting stability.
It certainly looks like a bold experiment, and it makes you wonder, doesn't it? What could this made in Burkina Faso model mean for other nations? Especially those trying to achieve real independence, real self-reliance in this messy world of global aid and complex development rules. Could this signal a real shift in how development happens, or how it should happen? What really stands out to you listening to this incredible story?